giving birth in the wild can be a true test of survival. From zebras that need to get their newborns on their feet within minutes to escape predators, to hyenas that endure one of the most difficult births in the animal kingdom, every birth carries extreme risks. In this ranking, you will discover 10 animals that go through surprisingly painful and dangerous births, where every minute can decide between life and death in the wild. But before we start, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Now let's begin. Number 10. Antelope birth in a world full of predators. Across the vast African savannas, where the horizon seems to stretch endlessly and the wind moves the tall grass like waves in a golden ocean, life is defined by a constant cycle of birth, survival, and death. Among the many animals that inhabit this unforgiving environment, antelopes hold a special place. Elegant, fast, and extremely alert, these herbivores live in a permanent state of vigilance. However, there is a moment in their lives when all that agility and caution must give way to absolute vulnerability, the moment of birth. For a female antelope, giving birth is not just a biological process. It is an extremely dangerous event that can determine the survival of both her and her newborn during the first minutes of life. Unlike many animals that reproduce in protected places such as burrows, nests, or caves, antelopes usually give birth out in the open. This means that during one of the most fragile moments of her life, the mother must deal with the pain of labor while remaining exposed to countless predators. Lions, hyenas, leopards, jackals, and even birds of prey constantly patrol these plains in search of hunting opportunities. A birth with its sounds, scents, and unusual movements can easily attract their attention. For this reason, many female antelopes move away from the herd shortly before giving birth, searching for areas with slightly taller vegetation or places where they can remain partially hidden. This strategy, although necessary, also brings additional risks. By separating from the herd, the female loses the collective protection of the group. Antelopes are highly social animals, and the presence of many individuals increases the chances of detecting predators quickly. Alone, the mother must rely only on her own senses and instincts. The birth itself is a physically demanding process. The antelope calf is born relatively large compared to the mother's body. This happens because, in an environment filled with predators, newborns must be ready to move quickly. Unlike many species whose young remain defenseless for long periods, baby antelopes need to stand and run just a few hours after birth, sometimes even in less than an hour. For this to be possible, their development inside the womb is already quite advanced. The result is a birth that requires great physical effort from the mother. The contractions can last for a considerable amount of time, and during this period, the female must remain alert to any sign of danger around her. The process usually begins with mild contractions that gradually become more intense. The female may walk in circles, lie down, and stand up repeatedly while trying to find a comfortable position. This behavior is not only the result of physical discomfort, it is also an attempt to ensure that the location is safe enough for the birth. When the calf finally begins to emerge, the situation becomes even more delicate. The mother usually lies. Number 9. Wild goat birth in the mountains, where any mistake can be fatal. In some of the most difficult mountainous regions on the planet, where the air is thin, the cold can be intense, and the terrain seems to be made entirely of stone, lives an animal known for its incredible ability to climb almost impossible cliffs: the wild goat. Species such as the mountain goat, the ibex, and other types of wild caprines inhabit mountains across Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and parts of Africa. These animals are specialists in surviving in extreme environments where few predators can reach them. However, there is a moment when even these masters of climbing become vulnerable: the moment of birth. For a female wild goat, giving birth is not simply a natural process. It is a physical challenge and a test of survival that takes place in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. Unlike many animals that search for safe places on forest floors or open fields, wild goats often live on steep terrain filled with rocks, cliffs, and sharp slopes. This means that the birth of a kid can happen in places where any slip could result in a fatal fall. Before giving birth, the female usually separates from the rest of the group. This separation has an important purpose. In large herds, constant movement can attract predators or create confusion during the birth. By isolating herself, the mother tries to find a relatively protected spot among rocks or small ledges on the mountain. These places provide some shelter from the wind and also reduce visibility to potential predators. Even so, absolute safety almost never exists in the mountains. Predators such as wolves, lynxes, eagles, and snow leopards may be watching from a distance. These hunters know that the birth of a newborn represents a rare opportunity, as both the mother and the newborn are momentarily more vulnerable. The birthing process in wild goats begins with contractions that may last for several hours. During this time, the female shows clear signs of discomfort. She may walk slowly, stop several times, lie down, and stand up repeatedly while trying to find a more comfortable position. This behavior is common among many mammals during labor, but in the mountains it becomes even more delicate, since every movement must be made carefully to avoid slipping. The wild goat kid is born relatively large and already quite developed. This happens because in dangerous mountainous environments, newborns need to move quickly to survive. Unlike species whose young remain immobile for long periods, wild goat kids must gain mobility almost immediately after birth. When labor finally begins, the mother usually positions herself in a stable spot between rocks or on a small, relatively flat area. The birth typically occurs with the kid emerging front legs and head first, a common position among ungulate mammals. Even so, the process requires great physical effort. After birth, the kid falls to the ground still. Number 8. Brown hyena. Being born in a world where survival begins in the first minute, in the arid regions of southern Africa, where deserts and dry savannas meet in vast and silent landscapes, lives an animal that is often misunderstood, the brown hyena. Unlike the famous spotted hyena, known for its characteristic laugh and complex social structure, the brown hyena leads a more discreet and mysterious life. Its body is covered with long, dark fur that moves with the desert wind, and its behavior is generally more reserved. However, behind this quiet appearance lies a harsh reality, especially when it comes to the birth of new cubs. For a female brown hyena, birth does not happen in peaceful or completely safe environments. The nature of the desert is unforgiving. Extreme temperatures, food scarcity, and the constant presence of predators make every stage of life a challenge. In this hostile scenario, bringing a cub into the world requires physical endurance, strategy, and instinct. Unlike many large mammals that give birth in open fields, brown hyenas usually choose more protected locations. The birth generally takes place inside natural dens, shallow caves, or holes between rocks. These shelters help protect newborn cubs from the intense heat of the day, the cold of the night, and especially from predators. Even so, birth is far from a simple process. The gestation period of a brown hyena lasts about 3 months, during which the female's body prepares for the moment of delivery. During this final phase, the mother's behavior gradually changes. She may become more solitary, spending more time exploring areas around the chosen den. When labor begins, the female usually remains inside the shelter. There, away from the eyes of other animals, the contractions that announce the birth of the cubs begin. These contractions can last for hours, as the mother's body works to bring new life into the world. Brown hyenas usually give birth to 1 to 4 cubs at a time. Each of them is born relatively small, with their eyes closed and completely dependent on the mother. Unlike herbivorous animals such as antelopes or zebras, whose young need to walk just hours after birth, hyena cubs are born extremely vulnerable. However, that does not mean the birth is easy for the mother. The process requires great physical effort and energy. The contractions intensify until the first cub finally emerges. The newborn enters the world covered in membranes and fluids, breathing for the first time in a completely new environment. Immediately, the mother begins to act. She licks the cub vigorously, cleaning its body and stimulating its breathing. This behavior also strengthens the bond between mother and offspring, something essential for the survival of the small animal. Soon after, the other cubs may begin to be born. Each birth demands more effort, more energy, and more endurance from the mother. In environments where food is not always abundant, this energy expenditure. Number 7. Leopard seal birth in one of the most extreme environments on the planet, in the frozen regions of Antarctica, where the ocean meets vast stretches of floating ice and snowstorms can arise without warning, lives one of the most impressive predators of the marine world, the leopard seal. Known for its powerful appearance, strong jaws, and efficient predatory behavior, this species occupies an important place in the Antarctic ecosystem's food chain. However, behind the image of a skilled hunter lies an extremely delicate moment in its life, the birth of a pup in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. For a female leopard seal, giving birth means facing not only the physical effort of labor, but also the challenge of surviving in a place where intense cold, unstable ice, and the lack of shelter make every stage of the process even more difficult. Unlike land animals that can seek caves, forests, or burrows for protection, many seals must deal with the reality of giving birth on floating ice platforms or coastal regions covered in snow. Before giving birth, the female spends months accumulating energy and body fat. habitat. This reserve is essential because during the initial period after the pup is born, the mother must dedicate much of her time to caring for the newborn. The Antarctic environment requires enormous energy expenditure to keep the body warm, making preparation for birth even more important. As the moment of birth approaches, the female searches for a relatively stable area of ice or a coastal region where she can remain more safely. This process of choosing a location is not simple. Sea ice is constantly moving, breaking apart, shifting, and forming new structures. An area that seems safe may fragment days later, creating risks for both the mother and the pup. In addition, although the environment may seem desolate, Antarctica is home to other predators that can pose a threat. Orcas, for example, are known to hunt seals and can attack ice platforms to knock their prey into the water. This danger makes it even more important for the mother to carefully choose the place where she will give birth. Labor in leopard seals is a physically demanding process. The pup is born relatively large compared to the mother's body, requiring intense contractions during birth. The delivery usually occurs on the ice, where the mother must position herself carefully to avoid slipping or losing balance during contractions. During this period, the female may remain lying down or partially leaning, showing clear signs of physical effort. As in many mammals, the process can take a considerable amount of time until the pup finally begins to emerge. When the birth occurs, the pup appears covered in fluids and with a layer of soft fur that helps protect it from the cold. This fur is different from the adult coat and provides an initial form of thermal insulation, while the pup adapts to the harsh environment. As soon as the baby is born, the mother, number 6, wild ox, the birth of a giant in the wild plains. Across vast plains and open forests in many regions of the world, from parts of Asia to areas of Europe and North America, live some of the most powerful herbivores on the planet, wild cattle. Animals such as bison, gaur, and other large wild bovines belong to a group known for their impressive strength, robust bodies, and great endurance. These giants of nature can weigh hundreds of kilograms and dominate entire landscapes with their presence. However, even among such powerful creatures, there is a moment of great vulnerability: the birth of a new calf. For a female wild ox, birth is an extremely demanding event. Unlike many smaller animals whose offspring are relatively light and quick to deliver, wild bovines must give birth to large and heavy calves. A newborn can weigh between 20 and 40 kilograms depending on the species. This means the mother's body must exert enormous physical effort to bring the new member of the herd into the world. The gestation of these animals usually lasts about 9 months, similar to domestic cattle. During this time, the calf develops inside the womb until it reaches a relatively advanced stage of growth. This evolutionary strategy has a clear reason. In the wild, calves must be able to stand and move shortly after birth in order to survive. As the time of birth approaches, the female's behavior gradually changes. She may begin to move away from the rest of the herd in search of a quieter location. This temporary isolation serves several important purposes. First, it reduces stress caused by the constant movement of the group. Second, it allows the mother to focus entirely on the birth of her calf. The areas chosen for birth usually contain relatively tall vegetation or some form of natural cover, such as bushes or small elevations in the terrain. Although they do not provide absolute safety, these places help hide the mother and newborn during the first critical moments. Labor begins with mild contractions that gradually become stronger. The female may walk slowly, stop repeatedly, and lie down in different positions while trying to deal with the physical discomfort. This process can last several hours depending on the species and the conditions of the birth. During this time, the mother remains alert. Even while facing contractions, her senses stay attentive to any suspicious movement around her. In the open plains where many wild cattle live, predators such as wolves, lions, or tigers can represent a real threat, especially to newborn calves. When birth finally begins, the calf slowly emerges. In most cases, the front legs appear first, followed by the head and the rest of the body. This process requires strong and repeated contractions that help push the calf outward. As soon as the birth occurs, the calf falls to the ground still covered in fluids and membranes. Even in this initial moment, time is extremely important, remaining motionless for test number 5, Wildebeest. Being born in the middle of nature's greatest race for survival, across the immense savannas of East Africa, where the horizon seems endless and the wind moves through the grasslands like golden waves, lives one of the most iconic animals of the African continent, the wildebeest. Also known as the gnu, this robust and resilient herbivore is famous for participating in one of the most impressive natural phenomena on Earth, the Great African Migration. Every year, millions of wildebeest cross plains, rivers, and dangerous territories territories in search of fresh grazing lands. However, within this spectacle of nature lies an even more dramatic moment: the birth of thousands of calves in an environment filled with predators. For a female wildebeest, birth does not occur in an isolated or protected place. On the contrary, it takes place in the middle of enormous herds that can number hundreds of thousands of individuals. During the calving season, thousands of calves can be born within just a few weeks. This phenomenon is known as a birth explosion, an evolutionary strategy that increases the chances of survival for the species. The logic behind this strategy is simple and powerful. When many calves are born at the same time, predators cannot capture them all. Even if lions, hyenas, leopards, and jackals manage to catch some newborns, the vast majority survive simply because there are too many calves to hunt. But for each mother, birth still represents an extremely difficult and dangerous moment. The wildebeest calf is born relatively large and already well developed. This is essential because life on the savanna does not allow long periods of vulnerability. Unlike many species whose young remain hidden or dependent for weeks, baby wildebeest must stand and run shortly after birth. Labor begins with contractions that may last several hours. During this period, the female may show clear signs of physical discomfort. She moves slightly away from the group, walks in circles, or searches for a relatively calm spot within the herd. Even so, she never becomes completely isolated, since the presence of the group helps reduce the risk of predator attacks. When the birth begins, the calf slowly emerges, usually with the front legs and head appearing first. The process requires intense contractions that push the calf's body outward. As soon as the birth occurs, the young wildebeest falls to the ground, still covered in fluids. This moment is extremely delicate. On the open plains of the savanna, predators are constantly watching for any sign of weakness. A newborn calf that remains on the ground for too long can quickly become the target of an attack. For this reason, the mother acts immediately. She begins to lick the calf vigorously, removing fluids and stimulating its body. This behavior helps activate blood circulation and breathing in the newborn. However, time is extremely limited. In many cases, a wildebeest calf must stand up in less than number 4. Zebra. Being born in a world where running means survival. Across the vast savannas of Africa, where grass stretches as far as the eye can see and the sky seems endless, lives one of the most recognizable animals on the planet, the zebra. With their unique black and white stripes, these animals stand out not only for their appearance, but also for the intense lives they lead in an environment where survival depends on speed, awareness, and cooperation. Behind the beauty of these creatures lies a harsh reality. The African savanna is a place where predators such as lions, hyenas, and leopards are always searching for opportunities to hunt. For adult zebras, the strength of the group and the ability to run quickly are their main defenses. However, there is a moment when even these strong animals become vulnerable: the birth of a foal. For a female zebra, birth is an extremely demanding and risky process. The newborn foal is relatively large and heavy compared to the mother's body. This size is necessary because, like other herbivores of the African plains, the young must quickly develop the ability to move and run. A zebra's gestation lasts about 12 months, a long period that allows the foal to develop significantly before birth. When the moment finally arrives, the mother usually moves slightly away from the group to find a relatively calm place. This separation does not mean she goes far. Staying close to the herd is still important for protection against predators. Even so, the female tries to find a space where she can give birth with less movement around her. Labor begins with contractions that can last several hours. During this time, the zebra shows clear signs of physical discomfort. She may walk slowly, stop repeatedly, look around, and try to find a comfortable position to cope with the process. Despite the pain and effort involved in giving birth, the female must remain extremely alert. On the open plains of the savanna, any moment of weakness can be noticed by predators searching for easy prey. When the birth finally begins, the foal slowly emerges. As in many other herbivorous mammals, the front legs and head usually appear first. The process requires strong contractions that help push the foal's body outward. As soon as the birth occurs, the young zebra foal falls to the ground, still covered in fluids. This moment is critical, as remaining motionless for too long can attract predators. The mother reacts quickly. She begins to lick the foal vigorously, cleaning its body and stimulating its breathing. This behavior also strengthens the bond between mother and offspring, something essential for survival during the first hours of life. The zebra foal is born with long and relatively strong legs, but still needs to learn how to control them. Even so, nature does does not offer much time for rest. Just a few minutes after birth, the foal begins trying to stand up. The first attempts are difficult. The legs tremble. Balance is number 3. Brown bear. Being born in the frozen silence of winter, in the dense forests and cold mountains of the northern hemisphere, lives one of nature's most imposing animals, the brown bear. Strong, resilient, and adapted to extreme environments, this giant can weigh hundreds of kilograms and dominate vast territories. Yet despite all this strength, the beginning of a bear's life is surprisingly fragile. The birth of bear cubs occurs under conditions very different from most large mammals and requires an enormous effort from the mother. To understand this moment, it is necessary to observe a very particular behavior of bears: hibernation. During the winter, when food becomes scarce and temperatures drop drastically, pregnant females enter a deep resting state inside protected dens. These dens may be cavities in the ground, natural caves, or hidden spaces beneath roots and fallen logs. Inside this isolated shelter, far from the intense cold and winter winds, one of the most unusual births in the animal kingdom takes place. The gestation of bears involves a mechanism known as delayed implantation. After mating, the embryo does not begin developing immediately. Instead, it remains in a dormant state until the female's body has accumulated enough fat reserves. Only when these reserves are sufficient does the embryo begin to grow. This adaptation ensures that the mother has enough energy to support the cubs during winter, a time when she practically does not eat. When the moment of birth arrives, usually in the middle of winter, the female is inside the den in a state of partial hibernation. Even so, her body enters labor. This process occurs in complete silence, hidden beneath snow and ice, far from any observer. Unlike many large mammals that give birth to big offspring, bear cubs are born incredibly small. A cub may weigh only about 400 to 700 grams, which is astonishing considering that the mother may weigh more than 200 kilograms. This extreme size difference is one of the largest in the animal kingdom. The birth itself still requires significant physical effort. Even inside the den, the mother's body must go through contractions that allow the cubs to be delivered. Usually 2 or 3 cubs are born in a single litter. When the cubs are finally born, they are completely helpless. Their eyes are closed, their bodies have very little fur, and their ability to move is extremely limited. At this early stage, they depend entirely on the warmth and protection of their mother. Even while remaining in a hibernating state, the mother reacts instinctively. She pulls the cubs close to her body and allows them to find her milk. Bear milk is extremely nutritious and rich in fat, allowing the cubs to grow quickly even in a cold environment. Throughout the entire winter, the mother rarely leaves the den. She survives on the fat reserves accumulated before hibernation. This energy sustains not only her own body, but also the production of milk to feed the... Number 2. Camel. Being born in the extreme heat of the desert, in the vast and seemingly endless deserts of North Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia, lives an animal that has become a symbol of endurance and adaptation: the camel. Fewer distractions and less risk of interference from other animals. Labor begins with contractions that can last for several hours. During this period, the female shows clear signs of physical effort. She may walk slowly, lie down, stand up again, and search for a position that relieves the discomfort. The desert heat makes this moment even more challenging. Under the intense sun, the physical effort required for birth can cause significant energy loss. When birth finally begins, the calf slowly emerges. As with many large mammals, the front legs and head usually appear first. This process requires strong contractions that help push the calf's body outward. After a period of intense effort, the baby camel is finally born and falls onto the sandy ground of the desert. During the first moments, the calf is still covered in fluids and has a soft coat that helps protect it from environmental conditions. Even so, it is still extremely vulnerable. The mother reacts immediately. She begins cleaning the calf with vigorous licking, removing fluids and stimulating its breathing. This behavior also strengthens the bond between mother and offspring. In the following minutes, the calf begins to show signs of movement. Its long and still unstable legs try to find balance on the sand. Like many herbivores that live in open environments, the camel calf. Number 1. Spotted hyena. One of the most difficult and dangerous births in the animal kingdom, in the open savannas of Africa, where wildlife follows an intense rhythm of hunting, escape, and survival, lives an animal that has long been misunderstood: the spotted hyena. Known for its characteristic laugh and reputation as a scavenger, this species is actually an extremely efficient predator with one of the most complex social structures among mammals. However, behind this strength and intelligence lies an astonishing and little-known reality. The spotted hyena hyena experiences one of the most difficult births in the entire animal kingdom. To understand why this birth is so challenging, it is necessary to look at a unique anatomical feature of females in this species. Spotted hyenas possess an organ known as a pseudopenis. This structure is formed by the female's extremely enlarged clitoris. Unlike most mammals, where offspring are born through a relatively direct birth canal, hyena cubs are born through this extremely narrow channel. This means the cub must pass through a long and very tight pathway to be born. This adaptation is linked to the social structure of hyenas. In spotted hyena societies, females dominate males. They have unusual hormonal levels that influence their physical development and behavior. Although this characteristic provides social advantages, it also makes birth much more difficult. When the moment of birth approaches, the female begins to show clear behavioral changes. She usually separates from the group and searches for a more isolated place to give birth. This isolation is important because labor requires concentration and may take a long time. The gestation period of a spotted hyena lasts about 110 days. During this time, 1 or 2 cubs develop inside the womb. When labor begins, contractions can last for several hours. The mother shows signs of intense physical effort as she tries to push the cub through the extremely narrow canal. This process is so difficult that, in the wild, many young females face complications during their first birth. When the cub finally begins to emerge, the effort required is enormous. Contractions must push the newborn's body through the elongated birth canal. This moment is considered one of the most risky births among mammals. When the cub is finally born, it falls to the ground still covered in fluids. Unlike many herbivorous animals that are born relatively defenseless, spotted hyena cubs already display some remarkable characteristics. They are born with their eyes open and with partially developed teeth. This characteristic is extremely rare among carnivorous mammals. In addition, the cubs show competitive behavior from the very first moments of life. When 2 cubs are born in the same litter, rivalry between them often begins within the first few days. Despite this aggressive behavior between siblings, the mother plays an essential role in the survival of the cubs. As soon as birth occurs, she begins cleaning the newborn with vigorous licking. This behavior helps remove fluids, stimulate breathing, and strengthen the bond between mother and offspring. After the birth, the mother usually remains in the den for some time, protecting the cubs as they adapt to the environment. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed our content, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Also, check out other interesting videos that are appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. See you next time.